सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति।
The fifth chapter begins with a question raised by Arjuna as to which path is better to attain knowledge, the path of renunciation or the path of action. So Bhagavan answering this question says, Arjuna, both the paths are equally effective. You have to choose the path according to your inclination. But whatever the path be chosen, one has to try to become a true sannyasi. Who is a true sannyasi? The one who is not agitated, one who is not affected by the ups and downs of life, one who is able to remain equanimous, balanced in all conditions of life. Such a person is a true sannyasi, and this is the goal one has to try to reach. The path is irrelevant. But then Bhagavan said the path of renunciation is more difficult compared to the path of action. Because in the path of renunciation, one need to have a good amount of control over the mind, purity of mind. Otherwise this path of renunciation can be difficult. Path of action is something which everyone can follow. So, by taking the path of action, how one reaches the Supreme, Bhagavan gives step-by-step process of evolution. What does Bhagavan say? So, verse number 6 and 7. Yoga yuktaha, the one who purifies his mind through yoga, who performs karma yoga, what happens to him? Vishuddha Atma. His mind becomes extremely purified. So here Atma doesn't mean the self. In Bhagavad Gita, in different places, Atma has got different meanings. So according to the context, you have to take the meaning here. Atma can mean the Supreme Self. Atma can mean the mind. Atma can mean in some places the body also. So here it is said Vishuddha Atma. Vishuddha Atma means what? Pure Atma. As far as self is concerned, it need not be purified, it is already pure. As far as the body is concerned, it cannot be purified. Then what is the only thing which can be purified? The mind. So Vishuddha Atma means with a purified mind. So after performing Karma Yoga, living in the world with a certain kind of attitude, dedicating all actions unto the Lord, when a person lives, such a person will have a pure mind, Vishuddha Atma. And thus, Vijita Atma. Once the mind is purified, that mind readily comes under the control of oneself. One easily conquers the mind. A purified mind alone can be conquered easily, Vijitatma. Once the mind is conquered, Jitendriyaha, the senses come under one's control easily. And once mind and the senses come under one control, then the next term is Munī. See the previous verse. Yoga yuktaha munihi. What does muni mean? The one who is capable of contemplation. So from here onwards the path of knowledge starts. Once the mind is purified, once the mind is available for the teaching, expose the mind to the teaching of the scriptures. So what are the process involved in the learning, in gaining knowledge? Shravana, Manana and Nididhyāsanam. So such a purified mind is available for listening to the knowledge of the scriptures. So that is Shravanam. Once having listened to the scriptures, doubts will be there in the mind. Those doubts have to be resolved by constant thinking over it, using the logic presented by the scriptures. This is called as Mananam. So after the stage of Mananam, your mind is free from doubts. And once the mind is free from doubts, next step is Nididhyāsanam. Nididhyāsanam means meditation. Once you have gained the knowledge, doubt-free knowledge, this knowledge has to sink in you. This knowledge has to be assimilated, digested, so that the information becomes transformation. In Shravana, you just gain information. This information should transform the person, and this happens through Manana and Nididhyāsana. For all this, your mind should be available. And the mind will be available only if it is purified. So therefore, first follow the process of Karma Yoga, then become a Muni, contemplative person. Think about this truth day in and day out, and slowly this knowledge you start receiving. You start living that knowledge. And once a person becomes Muni, what happens to him? Verse number 6. Such a person, nachirena brahma adhigacchati. He attains Brahman. What is this Brahman? Brahman is none other than our own true nature, which is Sat, Chit, Ananda, Atma. Purify the mind, gain the knowledge, and become one with the knowledge. And what is this knowledge? Anyway, this knowledge will be coming again later on. We will discuss there in detail. Here we will briefly mention what this knowledge is. The spiritual knowledge speaks that it says that we are pure consciousness and we are not the body, mind, intellect. We are this pure consciousness which is a mere witness of all our equipments. So once the mind is purified, you come to know in your own seat of meditation that every other equipment of yours, whether it is body, mind or intellect, they are all nothing but an observed entity. I, the pure consciousness, am only a witness. So who am I? I am not the body. But in my ignorance, what have I thought about myself? That I am the body. This is the mistake. Now this knowledge will not come merely by reading scriptures. It comes only through the process of Shravana, Manana and Nididhyāsana. This is the knowledge which this person gains. So what is the use of this knowledge? Why should we strive for this knowledge? As far as consciousness is concerned, it is pure existence, meaning it doesn't undergo non-existence. It doesn't die. It is immortal. Moreover, it is of the nature of bliss. What we seek in life is nothing but bliss. This bliss is already the nature of consciousness. So this consciousness has no death. This consciousness has no sorrow. So therefore a person who experiences this consciousness as oneself experiences infinite bliss, eternal bliss. This is exactly what we are seeking in life also. What is the mistake we have done? Instead of identifying oneself with the consciousness, we are identifying oneself with the body. Now what is the nature of the body? Any body has the same biography. Asti, jayate, vardhate, viparinamate, apakshiyate, vinashyate. It exists, it grows, matures, decays and dies. Now when I identify myself with the body, what is my experience? My experience is I am also this perishable body. And because of this identification, all through my life I live with a sense of dissatisfaction. I am seeking happiness, but I am not able to get happiness. I think the happiness is in the world outside. It is not in the world outside. Happiness is your own nature, but in order to access this happiness, you must have this knowledge. You must end this identification with the body. This is all what we have to do in spirituality. Problem is identification with the body, because of which the property of the body appears to be my property, and any property of the body is not fulfilling. Body by itself is limited. Mind and intellect by itself is limited. When you identify with anything limited, you start experiencing limitation. Every effort of a human being in this world is to overcome this limitation. All of us, we want how much happiness? Infinite happiness for infinite period of time, isn't it? But once this identification with the limited equipment take place, this identification gives you only limited happiness and more of pain. So what do we try to overcome this limitation? We try to overcome the limitation by beautifying the body, improving the mind, improving the intellect. Now will it solve the problem? It will not solve the problem, because any amount of improving the BMI will again end up in another limited BMI. How much can you improve? You can go on improving, but still any BMI, body, mind, intellect, will be a limited entity only, and any identification with the limited entity will give you only limitation. And any limitation is a suffocation. It is a suffocation because our nature is infinity. The one who is infinite, when he is caged within the finite BMI, will have to experience suffocation. And this is what we call as samsara. Suffering of the worldly people. So what is the solution? The solution is only one. Disidentify with your limited equipment. Identify with the limitless self. Now this is what this seeker has achieved. Such a person, nachirena brahma adhigacchati. He attains. Now here, please note, it is not attaining something. It is just rediscovering one's own nature. It is already there. Since you had ignored it, neglected it, it was not available for experience. The moment you started paying attention to it, the moment you started valuing it and striving for it, you get it. Then what happens to such a person? See the next verse. Sarva bhutatma bhutatma. Once he identifies himself with consciousness, what will be his experience? He experiences that this consciousness in oneself is the very same consciousness in all the others. He experiences oneness with all the beings. Sarva bhuta atma bhutatma. The one who has become one with all the beings. Sarva bhutatma bhutatma. You have to see the reverse. Sarva bhuta plus atma plus bhuta plus atma. Last atma is the one, the last atma. Bhuta, who has become atma, the self. Sarva bhuta, of all beings. This is the way you have to split the word and understand. The one who has become the self of all beings. You have to start from the last. Atma, Bhuta, Atma, Sarva Bhuta. The one who has become the self of all beings. So this person, what is his opinion, understanding about himself? I am consciousness. With an incidental body. With a secondary, an unimportant body, mind, intellect. Now, what is he giving importance to in life? He will be giving importance to consciousness. Earlier, as an ignorant person, we give importance to the body. Consciousness is ignored. But now, a jnani, what does he see as himself? He doesn't see himself as the body. He sees himself as consciousness with a body. Now, this is a great transformation, because one is impermanent, the other is permanent. One is perishing, the other is eternal. Now he identifies himself with consciousness. So now when he looks into this world of beings, what will he see in others? How you think yourself, you will see the same thing in others also. If you consider yourself as the body, how will you see others? As body, isn't it? Now this jnani, he considers himself as consciousness. So naturally when he sees others, what does he see? He sees consciousness with another body. So he is consciousness with this body, she is consciousness with that body. Body, mind, intellect becomes secondary. What is primary? Consciousness. And this consciousness is one and the same in all. So naturally, what is the emotion which rises? Remember, wherever there is a vision of oneness, there love becomes spontaneous, natural. Wherever there is identification, all the virtues become natural. Why does a mother love the child? The mother loves the child because child is hers. See, the identification is there. Wherever there is identification, you will find love becoming natural, forgiveness becoming natural, charity becoming natural, compassion becoming natural. Sarva bhutatma bhutatma. So when he sees, when he looks into the world, he doesn't see different people. What does he see? He sees his own self expressing in different packing. That's all. Packing is something which has to perish. What is the essence? Essence is consciousness. So therefore, a Mahātmā is able to love everyone unconditionally. Just as I am able to love myself unconditionally, in the same way, a Mahātmā, a realized saint, is able to love everyone unconditionally. All the virtues become natural to him because of his knowledge. So this is the goal of life. So what happens to such a person? Bhagavan says, Kurvannapi na lipyate. Even though he performs action, those actions don't taint him. Na lipyate. Such a person, though he performs actions, those actions won't affect him. How it doesn't affect him? The explanation of that part is given in the next two verses, 8 and 9. Let us chant. Naiva kinchit karomiti yukto manyeta tattvavit Pashyan shrunvan sprashan jighran Ashnan gachan swapan shwasan Pralapan visrajan granhan Unmishan nimishan api Indriyani indriyartheshu Vartanta iti dharayan Naiva kinchit karomiti Yukto manyeta tattvavit Pashyan shrunvan sprashan jighran Ashnan gachan swapan shwasan Pralapan visrajan granhan Unmishan nimishan api Indriyani indriyartheshu Vartanta iti dharayan. Yes. So such a Mahatma, his way of living is mentioned here. What is his understanding about himself, about life, about action, etc.? Naiva kinchit karomi. I don't do anything. Yuktaha manyeta tattvavit. Such a tattvavit, the knower of the truth, what is his understanding? Aham naiva kinchit karomi. I don't do anything at any time. Though he is very much busy in the world, performing all kinds of action, selfless action, for the welfare of all, but what is his understanding? I don't do anything. Indriyani indriyartheshu vartante. If you ask him, Arey, you are doing so many things with your body, mind, etc., that is only indriyas interacting with the objects of the indriyas. The sense organs are interacting with the sense objects. That's all. Then who are you? I am a mere witness. In my presence, things are happening. I don't do anything. Anyway, this concept we will discuss in detail later. Consciousness is something which lends sentiency to matter. Everything that is made of 5 elements, they are matter. So the world is a matter. What about the body? That is also matter, because body is made up of 5 elements. Mind is also matter. There is only one thing which is not matter. What is that? Consciousness. And what does this consciousness do? It just lends sentiency to the matter, because of which matter appears alive. Actually, matter is inert. What are these 5 elements? Space, air, fire, water, earth. Akasha, Vayu, Agni, Jala, Prithvi. Now these 5 elements are inert by nature. Right? This body is made of these inert elements. But this body appears to be alive. Why is this body appearing to be alive? Because there is a touch of sentiency given by consciousness. The mind is also made up of 5 subtle matter. Then how is it that the mind appears to think, etc.? It is also because it borrows sentiency from consciousness. Just like electricity makes the bulb, fan, etc. as though sentient, alive. Without electricity, bulb cannot function, TV cannot function, fan cannot function. But in the presence of electricity, all of them function according to their nature, isn't it? In the same way, in the presence of consciousness, body, mind, intellect, etc. function. Now this Mahatma has identified himself with what? With consciousness. Does consciousness do anything? No. It just lends a sentiency. By itself, it doesn't do anything. Whatever be the nature of the body, whatever is the nature of the mind, whatever be the talents of the intellect, accordingly it functions. What is the job of consciousness? Just lending sentiency. Now here is a Mahatma who has totally identified with consciousness. Therefore, what is his experience? Naiva kinchit karomi. I don't do anything. It is a life of total relaxation. Because now you cannot be held responsible. Nor are you bothered. You have perfect objectivity with respect to your body, mind and intellectual functions. I, the pure consciousness, merely lend sentiency. I don't do anything. To give an example, fire cooks food. Is it right or wrong? Right. Fire cooks food. Now cooking is a verb. Yes or no? It is an action. Now when we say fire cooks food, it appears as though fire is deliberately cooking food. It appears to be a verb. But is it a verb? Just like bird is flying. It is definitely an action voluntarily performed by the bird, flying. In the same way, can you say fire is deliberately cooking the food? No. What is the actual sentence? Actual sentence is, in the presence of fire, cooking is happening. Yes or no? Fire is not even what you call aware that so many food is being cooked. But without fire, cooking cannot happen. But at the same time, that cooking is not a verb. In the presence of fire, food is being cooked. Isn't it? In the same way, the Mahātmā, what does he feel? In my presence, in the presence of consciousness, body is functioning its swadharma. Mind and intellect, they are performing its swadharma. What are you doing? I am a mere witness. Totally indifferent. This is the experience of a Mahātmā. In fact, this is the highest truth also. Each and every one of us, we are mere a witness. But then why do we feel that we are doing everything? It is only because of identification. When you identify with the body, bodily functions appear to be your function. Bodily activity appears to be your activity. It is only because of the mistake of identification. In fact, the truth is, you are consciousness, you have nothing to do with the body. This point again we will discuss further later on. So what does these two slokas say? Bhagavan says, this is the experience of a Mahātmā. Whatever be the bodily functions, the sense organs function, the sense organs of action, the sense organs of knowledge, both of them function. But as far as this jnani is concerned, he, according to him, what is his understanding? I don't do anything. Even when the body is functioning, what are the different kinds of function? First one, pashyan, seeing. When he sees through the eyes, pashyan, shrunvan. When he listens through the ears, sprushan. When he touches through the skin, when he feels through the skin, jigran. When he smells through the nose, asnan. When he tastes through the tongue, asnan means eating, you taste. So here you have 5 jnana indriyas. What are the 5 jnana indriyas? Eyes, ears, nose, skin and tongue. Shabda, sparsha, rupa, rasa, gandha. These are the knowledge of the world. You receive this information from the world through these sense organs of knowledge. Yes, ashnan. Gachan. Gachan means going, walking. You walk through your legs. So now they are the pancha karmendriyas. Gachan. Swapan. Swapan means sleeping. Shwasan, breathing. Pralapan, talking. Visrajan, excreting. Grinnan, holding. Unmishan, opening the eyes. Nimishan, closing the eyes. These are the activities. So again the 5 activities of the karmendriyas. What are the karmendriyas? Hands, legs, tongue through which you speak. Karmendriya means you perform action in the world. So hands, legs, tongue, then genital organ, anus, and that's all, 5. So each organ of action perform respective activity in the respective field. So now the point is, what is the understanding of Mahātmā? He also lives like any other person, doing all these activities. But what is his understanding about himself? I don't do anything. Sense organs are functioning in the sense objects in this world. As far as I am concerned, I am a totally indifferent witness to all this. This topic again we will take up later. This is the culmination of knowledge. So as far as that person is concerned, it really doesn't matter whether the body exists or not. Actually, he has become deathless the moment he knows his own self. Whether the body is existing or not, it depends upon the prarabdha of the body. He is not worried about it. He knows himself to be immortal, blissful self. Such a person is called a Jivan Mukta, the one who is liberated while living. Now again Bhagavan comes to the very same first topic. So earlier it was said, the mind is purified through yoga. Such a purified mind is used for contemplation. With contemplation one gains the knowledge and then gets liberated. So what is the first one? Performance of actions in the Karma Yoga attitude. Now what is this Karma Yoga? It was already mentioned in the 3rd chapter. Bhagavan once again takes up that topic. So today we will spend more time on this topic. Let us chant 10, 11 and 12.
Brahmanyādhāya karmāni Sangam tyaktva karoti yaha Lipyate na sa papena Padmapatramivambhasa Kayena manasa buddhya Kevalairindriyairapi Yoginah karma kurvanti Sangam tyaktvatma shuddhaye Yuktah karma phalam tyaktva Shantimapnoti naishtikim Ayuktah kamakarena Phale sakto nibadhyate Brahmanyādhāya karmāni Sangam tyaktva karoti yaha Lipyate na sa papena Padmapatramivambhasa Kayena manasa buddhya Kevalairindriyairapi Yoginah karma kurvanti Sangam tyaktvatma shuddhaye Yukta karma phalam tyaktva Shantimapnoti naishtikim Ayukta kamakarena. Yes. Now the entire technique of Karma Yoga is mentioned here. What is the purpose of Karma Yoga? Atma Shuddhaye, for purification of mind. Now the question is it necessary that action should be performed in the spirit of Karma Yoga? What happens if actions are not performed with this particular attitude? As usual, without studying the scriptures, we are performing action. What is wrong with it? It's a natural question. So in the 3rd chapter, Bhagavan says, Yajñārthāt karmanonyatra lokaha ayam karma bandhanaha. Bhagavan says action is a double-edged weapon. If you wrongly handle action, this very same action can cause bondage. It can bind you. Now we have to understand how actions bind us. Actions may appear to be very, very innocent, but every moment we are performing action, if these actions are not performed in the right attitude, these actions can bind us. How actions bind us? Let us see. First of all, when do we feel that we are bound?
whenever we lack freedom, we say we are bound, isn't it? First of all, let us understand what is physical bondage. When do I say that I am physically bound? Suppose there is a pole and somebody ties me to the pole. Then what do I experience? I experience bondage. Why do I say that I am bound? Because I want to move freely, but I am not able to move freely. Isn't it? Yes. Physical bondage is very easy to understand. Now there is something called psychological bondage. Bondage at the mind level. This bondage is what is being spoken of. Now let us see how our actions bind us. What is the purpose of performing all action? Purpose is only one, happiness. Yes or no? Yes. Now, according to majority of us, we perform action because by performance of action we get certain results from the world, and those results make us happy. Yes or no? Yes. Take any example. We are working hard so that a particular result may come from the world. That result make me happy. Enjoy the result and become happy. This is our philosophy. Now, how much happiness are we striving for? We want infinite happiness for infinite period of time. Now let us see whether actions can give it or not. Now tell me, all our actions are limited or unlimited? Any action is limited. It is limited in time. It is limited in space. It is limited by the ability of the doer. Isn't it? All our instruments are limited. Body is limited. Mind is limited. Intellectual abilities are limited. Talents are limited. So when you perform actions with limited BMI in limited space and limited time, what kind of results can it produce? Naturally, it can produce only limited results. Now, with limited result, how much happiness can you gain? Limited happiness. Correct? You are seeking unlimited happiness, but what are you getting? Limited happiness. Now, what is the tendency to do? The tendency will be to perform the same action so that that limited happiness can be extended a little further. Right? So now you can see karma phala, a limited sukha. What is the next step? Again karma. So that you get again the same karma phala. A little more sukha. Again the same thing. Now see, you are bound. Any cycle is bondage. You are not moving forward. Yes or no? Yes. Defect number 2. We are performing action for the sake of results. What about the results of the world? Are they certain or uncertain? They are all uncertain. Now, according to our philosophy, work hard, get result, enjoy result, be happy. So therefore, result has an intimate relationship with happiness. I want to be happy, so therefore I want result. Now the problem is results are uncertain, unpredictable. Though results are unpredictable, you tend to hold on to result because that is the only source of joy now. The only source of happiness is result, so therefore you cannot leave the results. You have to hold on to the result. Now what happens when you hold on to an uncertain, unpredictable result? Naturally your mind also goes through the same state. Meaning the mind goes through worry, anxiety, fear, tension, etc. You don't want worry, but you cannot but worry. You don't want anxiety, but you cannot but be anxious. See, there is a bondage. You are bound to worry. You are bound to be stressed. Yes or no? You want happiness, but you cannot be happy. Because happiness is related to something unpredictable. Therefore, you are bound to be miserable. Is there a bondage or not? Yes. It's a very strange situation. You want happiness, but you cannot be happy. The very thing which you are chasing takes away the happiness from you. Defect number 2. Defect number 3. As you perform actions, these actions have a tendency to leave impressions behind in the mind. They are called as vasanas. Any action you do it continuously over a period of time, you will find these actions leaving impressions behind. Suppose a person who never takes tea, he starts taking tea at 5 o'clock. Every day, exactly at 5 p.m. he starts taking tea. Over a period of time, what happens? He becomes addicted to tea. The simple action of just drinking tea or coffee, what happens? Over a period of time, it creates an impression to such an extent that without tea you can't. Every action when it is performed, the likes and dislikes, raga dvesha intensifies, vasanas intensify, and slowly that person becomes a slave of his addictions. This is defect number 3. Yes or no? Yes. Any action, it can be good or bad. Nothing wrong in getting addicted to something good. But addiction is an addiction. It makes you a slave of your mind. This is defect number 3. Now, slavery is a bondage or not? It is bondage. Defect number 4. When I perform actions, who should enjoy the fruit of action? I myself. Yaha karta bhavati sa eva bhokta bhavati. Karta alone should become bhokta. The doer of action alone becomes the enjoyer of the fruit of action. So suppose I perform an action in this birth. Suppose the result has to come in the next birth. What happens? I have to be born again to this world. Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. Now I am bound to this world. Is it a bondage or not? I make sure that I am born again. How? By performing such actions which will yield results in the next birth. So all those results which I have not enjoyed, those results are waiting for me in my next embodiment. So this way I am bound to this world. All this because of what? Your own actions. Your own unintelligently performed action. Now you may ask, what is that big mistake which I have done because of which every action is leading to bondage? What is that mistake I am performing? Because superficially everything is fine. I am such a nice person, good person. And ultimately my own actions are binding me. The scripture says, you have done a very, very, very big, unforgivable mistake. And what is the mistake? You have forgotten the one who has given you the ability to perform action. You have forgotten God. This is the mistake. So therefore, see verse number 10. The first remains Brahmani adhaya karmani. Performing action as an offering unto Brahman, the Lord. Here Brahman doesn't mean Nirguna Brahman, Saguna Brahman or Ishvara. Performing action as a worship of the Lord. So what is the mistake we have done? The mistake we have done is we have forgotten God. The statement we make is, I perform action. Actually that statement is wrong. The real statement should be, I have been blessed with the ability to perform action. This is the right statement. Let us first start from the scratch. In order to understand this Karma Yoga, first of all, we have to meditate upon the truth, the bare facts of life. In order to perform action, the body has to have life. Yes or no? Yes. Now just list down the number of factors because of which the body is alive. Let us start from the scratch. First of all, the body has to be alive, isn't it? Then only you can perform an action. Tell me the number of factors which you can count because of which the body is alive. External as well as internal factors. How many factors can you count? You need air to breathe. The earth has to be at a particular temperature, particular pressure. There has to be sunlight. There has to be food. The gravity has to be exactly at the right measure, isn't it? You just list down. This is with respect to the external thing. What about the internal? If you want to remain, if you want to survive in this world, there are countless billion factors. The kidney has to function, the heart has to function, the liver has to function, the blood circulation has to take place, the digestion has to take place, the brain has to function. How many cells are there in this body? Each and every cell has to function. Who takes care of all this? You cannot call it an accident because accident happens rarely, occasionally. But these things are happening every moment. So definitely it cannot be an accident. There is definitely a supreme intelligence which is at work. The supreme intelligence, we call it God. So what is that which is keeping me alive? It is that high intelligence, that supreme being who is keeping this body alive. Fine, the body is alive. Who is giving me the ability to act, work, to perform action? Who is giving me the ability? Just ask this one simple question. How am I moving this finger? If you are performing this action, you must be able to list down how you are doing it. What are the brain cells you are activating? What are the nerves you are activating? You must be able to list down because you are doing it. We find that I don't know anything. Even such a simple act of moving the finger, I really don't know anything, isn't it? So this is what we have to meditate upon. First meditation is not meditating upon consciousness, witness, etc. Keep all those aside. First meditation should take you to the fact that I am nothing, I have nothing, and I can do nothing. This is a fact. So the starting meditation should be such. Meditate upon each and every part of the body. Meditate upon each and every factor because of which you are alive. And as you meditate upon these factors, slowly, slowly, heart is filled with gratitude. Oh Lord, because of you, I am existing. Your heart is filled with love. Fill your heart with love. Fill your heart with humility. Fill your heart with gratitude. This is the first step in spirituality. First step in spirituality is not Shravana, Manana, etc. That comes later. That's why Bhagavan uses Munī later. First is Yoga Yukta. Understand this truth that I am nothing, I have nothing, and I can do nothing with my own ability. I have no ability at all. Let us start from the scratch. And then what happens? Every day when you meditate like this, your heart is filled with gratitude. Your heart is filled with love. Our problem is, our heart is not filled with gratitude. You know why? Oh, you have given this to everyone, no? So why should I feel gratitude? This is strange. Everyone is living, everyone is blessed with talents, then why should I alone feel grateful to you? This is our question. This is stupidity. Only if I am blessed, then alone I should be grateful. Some people say, that accident, I was there in that bus. I am so grateful to God, only I am saved. This is stupidity. So first of all, let us have a heart. Let us develop a kind of heart which is filled with gratitude, love, humility, etc. This is the first step in spirituality. A heart which cannot feel grateful to God can never progress in spirituality. Forget about it. You may do 100,000 sittings of meditation, meditating upon consciousness and this and that. Nothing will happen. Nothing is going to happen. A pure mind has to be cultivated first. So then what happens? When your heart is filled with gratitude and love, reverence and respect for that Supreme Being, naturally a desire comes, Bhagavan, I want to do something for you. When somebody is constantly giving you without any expectation, what will be your attitude?
you also want to give something in return, isn't it? In worldly thing also, worldly relationship also we find this. When somebody is constantly giving me something, I also want to reciprocate. So naturally this question comes, Bhagwan, you are giving me so much to me. What can I give you? Whatever I have is yours. So therefore, O Lord, through the gifts which you have given me, the gifts namely this body, this mind, this intellect, which you have given me, it is your gift to me. May I use these gifts in such a way that you are pleased with me. May I employ these gifts in such a way that you are pleased with me. You should feel happy that you have created me. You should never repent that you have created such a useless fellow like me. So therefore, what I should do, with whatever abilities you have given me, whatever talents you have given me, may I use it in such a way that you are pleased. Now, how can you please God? Only when you live a life of dharma, you can please God. Only when you are righteous, you can please God. What is the purpose of Bhagwan's avatar? What is the purpose? Dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. Isn't it? So what is the purpose? Dharma samsthapana is the purpose. Establishing law and order, establishing righteousness in the society, bringing values in the hearts of human beings. This is the purpose of all avatars. So naturally, what is the message? The message is very clear. The Lord who is my creator will be pleased with me only if I employ the God-given gifts in such a way that I live a dharmic life and I inspire others to live, to take up the path of dharma. Then alone I can please God. Now remember, I want to please God for what? Not to get something, but it is an expression of gratitude. That He has given so much to me, I want to do something in return. He should not feel bad that He has created me and I am misusing these gifts. No. Is an expression of gratitude, is an expression of love. So therefore, such a person, now here this is the meaning, Brahmani adhaya karmani. Performing all duties as a worship of the Lord, as an offering unto the Lord, as an expression of gratitude. Now the question is, how will I know whether Bhagwan is pleased with me or not? How will I know? It's very easy. Remember, after performance of action, what is the kind of mind you carry, that will show. If the mind is disturbed, understand God is not pleased with you. If the mind is peaceful, understand God is pleased with you. Direct, straightforward method. You don't have to go through so many means to know God. You can, He communicates to you directly through the state of your mind. So what am I supposed to do? Every day, morning and evening, sit silently in solitude and look at the state of the mind. So when you sit, what all had happened in the daytime, whichever situation, whichever action has created deep impression in your mind, that will pop up first, good or bad. And by looking at that state, you will know whether you have done some mistake or not. So there will be moments where you have compromised with your values. What will happen to the mind then? It will be disturbed. There will be moments where you have yielded to temptation. What will be the state of the mind? It will be disturbed. There will be moments where you have used harsh words against someone. What will happen to the mind? Disturbed. There will be moments where you have perform certain wrong actions. In all these cases, you will find
the mind is agitated. In the heat of the moment you have done something, but now when you are sitting in silence and looking within, you find all these kinds of disturbance remaining there, waiting for your attention. Remember, every state of the mind is a coded message from God. He is talking to you. Every moment He is talking to you. The problem is we are not listening to Him. As long as your attention is outward, this coded message will not be revealed to you. It is there. The message is there. Warnings keep coming. Now and then. God is every moment guiding you. But you have to listen to Him. Then alone you will be able to understand this message. And for that, you have to spend some time with yourself. Cut off from the world. Looking within. Now suppose I understand that I have made a mistake. Because of which the mind is disturbed. Now what am I supposed to do? I was supposed to please God, but my actions have been such that I have displeased God. Now what am I supposed to do? The solution is very simple. Seek forgiveness. Don't try to justify your action. If you are trying to justify your action, you will find that the disturbance remains there without going. But suppose you say, "Oh Lord, forgive me. I have committed such a mistake. Unknowingly I have done this. I will try my best not to repeat it." When you confess, what happens is immediately you will find the disturbed mind becomes quiet. Bhagwan is ocean of compassion. It doesn't matter whether you are committing mistake or not. It is natural. Every one of us will commit mistake because we are beginners. Karma Yogī is a beginner. He is not a jnani. So naturally there will be many moments where he will compromise with values. He will stumble and fall. It is natural. Falling is not the problem. What is important is every time I compromise with higher values, I must admit that I have made a mistake. And I must seek forgiveness from God. And if your seeking of forgiveness is from the depth of your heart, you will immediately find the response. You can experience that God has forgiven you. How will you know? The disturbed mind becomes immediately peaceful. And once the mind is at peace, understand God has forgiven you. Understand your prayer has been answered. This way, every day, morning and evening, sit and spend time with God. Slowly, you will get a perfect connection with God. Then what will happen? A time will come when you don't have to wait for the evening or the morning. Even when you are going to do something wrong, the voice from within becomes so loud that you dare not do something wrong. Even while performing action, you are warned and you listen to that warning. Because one part of the mind is always listening to Him. Because of your everyday sadhana, one part of your mind is constantly listening to Him. Earlier you were not able to do it because the entire mind is extrovert. But with your regular sadhana, what happens? One part of the mind constantly listens to Him, gets the guidance from Him and performs actions in the world. Then what happens? His will becomes your will. You become a perfect instrument in the hands of the Lord. Whatever He wants, He gets it done through you. There is no clash. I hope you are getting my point. This is called Brahmani Adhaya Karmani. All actions from a Karma Yogi, then once the tuning has happened, all actions will be dharmic actions. Automatically, spontaneously. He has no other will other than God's will. His instruments are used as Bhagwan's instruments. This is called Ishvara Arpana Buddhihi in Karma Yoga. When I offer myself completely unto the Lord, then the Lord starts making use of this instrument for establishing dharma, according to the capacity, talents, etc. of that body. So what is the experience? The experience is peace. While performing action also you are at peace. After performance of action, when the results come, you are at peace. Now see the second term. Sangam tyaktva. Sangam tyaktva. What do you mean by sangam tyaktva? Giving up sangam. Sangam means attachment. Attachment to what? Attachment can be towards two things. Number one, with respect to action. Number two, with respect to the results of the action. So how is he supposed to perform action? Sangam tyaktva, without attachment. Remember, wherever there is attachment, there is compromise, no doubt. The more the attachment, the greater will be the compromise. Now a Karma Yogi performs action for whom? He doesn't perform action for himself. If he is attached to himself, his likes and dislikes, he will compromise, no doubt. But now he is performing action to please God. So therefore he doesn't see whether he likes it or not. He only sees one thing, whether it is right to do it or not. So actions are motivated by rights and wrongs, not by likes and dislikes. Sangam tyaktva, free from attachment while performing action. To give an example, suppose there is a teacher who is correcting the paper, and then she finds that her own son's answer sheet comes in front. Let us say it is a 10th standard, very important. How did she recognize this answer sheet? By looking at the handwriting. Name is not there, roll number, etc. is not there. By handwriting she could make out, this is my son's handwriting. She is a mother on one side, she is a teacher on the other side. As a mother, what will she like to do? Give maximum marks by ignoring all the mistakes, isn't it? As a mother, naturally she wants her son to score the highest mark. But as a teacher, what is she supposed to do? She is supposed to be impartial. Correct? Now there is a tussle. Teacher in her asks her to do one thing, mother in her asks her to do something else. Whether she will compromise or not will depend upon this term, Sangam. How much is she attached to the son? To such an extent that she is blinded to the truth, blinded to God. Greater the attachment, greater will be the jamming of your intellect. Your intellect will be paralyzed when you are stung by attachment. Intellect will not be able to function. Now, which action will please God in this example? If she is impartial, if she is loyal to her higher role than the smaller role, which is the smaller role? Mother's role is smaller, teacher's role is bigger. So when you are free from attachment, you are able to function according to your higher role, dropping the lower role. You are able to function, that freedom is there. But once you are attached, you will no longer be able to expand yourself to the higher goal, and thus your actions will be many times displeasing to God. In fact, it is the same problem faced by Arjuna also. In the battlefield, the moment he sees his family people, his teachers, his grandfather, all other relatives, what did he say? Bhagavan, I cannot fight. Now many people think Arjuna was right. He should not fight with the grandfathers. He should not fight with the teachers. He is absolutely right. Krishna is a thief. In the beginning itself, he had been stealing butter. Later on, he started confusing others, deluding others. This is what so many people think. Now I am asking you, who is right, Krishna or Arjuna? No doubt Krishna alone is right.
Because he is going into the battlefield not as a family man. Family role is a smaller role. He is going to the battlefield as an army man. Army role is a bigger role. He is identifying with the entire nation when he is performing his action as an army man. Yes or no? Yes, in a family I should worship my teacher, I should worship my grandfather, etc. Accepted. But in that situation, there is a bigger role. The bigger role of an army man, where the fate of the entire nation is at stake. At that time, I am not supposed to function in my limited, smaller role. Now, this clarity of thinking was not there in Arjuna because of the same problem called Sangam. Each word is important. Each word is important. So, with respect to action, Sangam Tyaktva, meaning Asangam. You will find this Sangam comes in verse number 10, verse number 11, again verse number 12. This Sangam terms comes in all the three verses. Yoginah karma kurvanti Sangam Tyaktva Atma Shuddhaye. Again verse number 12. Yuktah karma phalam Tyaktva. So Sangam with respect to action is one thing. Sangam with respect to the results of the action is another thing. That we will see tomorrow. Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah Sarve Santu Niramayah Sarve Bhadrani Pasyantu Ma Kaschit Dukkha Bhag Bhave Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.